Fox News alert. Right now, Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, coming under intense fire. Local media reporting dozens killed and several hundred injured as Putin ratchets things up. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky refusing to back down to Putin's terror, saying earlier, "We showed to the world who we are, and Russia showed what it became." Russia didn't believe in such a mighty reaction full of solidarity, but Ukrainians changed this story. Fox News contributor Dan Hoffman served in Moscow and all around the world as a CIA station chief. He joins us right now from his station. Dan, good morning to you.
Thanks. Good morning.
So Putin put his nuclear arms on alert. We don't know if he's talking about short range, if he's talking about the big stuff that can get here. What's he doing?
So he's got 4 levels of readiness for his nuclear weapons, and right now he's at the 2nd level, which is elevated. I think what he's trying to do is message the West. He's trying to extort us. He knows that right now significant provision of military assistance, that's Stingers and Javelins and other military equipment, is helping Ukraine stay in the fight. And timing is on President Zelensky's side and his brave Ukrainian citizens who have taken up arms in defense of democracy. You know, just a short while ago, it seems, Ukraine was trying so hard to join NATO, and there wasn't a lot of interest among NATO members in admitting Ukraine. And now it's as if NATO is out there joining Ukraine in the fight for what matters most, liberty and freedom, against this unprovoked Russian brutal aggression. So I think Vladimir Putin is running out of cards to play on this one, and that's what we're seeing. He's using the nuclear card, and that's a risky one.
And so you're saying he's using the nuclear card right now to get the NATO countries to not send stuff to Ukraine that's going to help them blow up his tanks. But at the same time, I'm sure you saw a little while ago, Marco Rubio, who sits on one of the Intel committees, said, "I can't say much, but Mr. Putin is acting erratically." And given the fact that he's got thousands of nukes, that's terrifying. Your perspective on that, what Marco Rubio said?
Yeah, so I think Senator Rubio is speaking from a position of knowledge. He's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, so he's reading a lot of intelligence reports. He can't get into the sources and the methods, but he's giving us his best analysis of Vladimir Putin's state of mind. Let's keep in mind that Vladimir Putin, I mean, this is nothing like what he's done in the past. Yes, he fought a war against Chechnya, a brutal one, shortly after he became president, invaded Georgia, and then invaded Ukraine after that, deployed troops to Syria. But those were all relatively limited military operations. This one is such a change in Vladimir Putin's risk calculus. And the question that I've had from the start is what is the breaking point? When is his military committing so many war crimes and innocent attacks against innocent civilians, against residential neighborhoods and hospitals and schools? When do they break with their leader, Vladimir Putin? That's a key question that President Biden should be asking our intelligence community.
Sure. And there was a story a couple of months ago about how our Pentagon was contacting another country, talking about to make sure that some sort of war didn't start, and nobody knew about that. At the same time, while Putin may run the government of Russia, the military leaders, if they're looking at him and they're thinking he's erratic, I don't know if we're going to, and he's got the button, I don't know if we're going to follow his lead. At what stage do the generals say, you know what, we're not going to follow that order?
Yeah, that's the question. And also Vladimir Putin's inner circle. It's basically his Minister of Defense, Shoigu, Director FSB, Patrushev, and his National Security Advisor, Bortnikov. So, I mean, those are key, absolutely key questions right there. And remember that it's happened before. The Tsarist Empire collapsed in the wake of World War I, right. When General Secretary Brezhnev sent troops to Afghanistan a couple years before he died. That also impacted the Soviet Union's staying power. And so, at some point, Russian elites have to understand, and they do, there were other ways for Vladimir Putin to achieve his aims. He probably could have subdued the West and achieved a lot of aims and goals of his without firing a shot. And yet he chose this path. And that's what we've got to be watching this week as Ukraine bravely holds out. Again, Russia's taken 2 southwestern cities. That's it. And we're almost a week into the fighting.
I'm sure Putin's saying, what is taking so long? But then again, you laid it all out. Dan Hoffman, thank you very much for joining us live.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.